The observation deck was quiet in the way only deep space could be. Not silence exactly, but the subtle hum of life support and engines that became white noise after enough time aboard ship. Captain Marcus Hayes stood at the viewport, watching the Viridian Nebula paint the darkness in shades of electric blue and violent purple, and tried to remember why he'd ever thought diplomatic duty sounded less exhausting than combat operations. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of treaty negotiations between Earth and the Aetherin Commonwealth, dancing around issues of trade rights, territorial boundaries, and technology exchange with the delicacy of diffusing a live explosive. Marcus had been selected for the human delegation, specifically because his military record showed both tactical brilliance and an unexpected talent for de-escalation. Apparently, "doesn't shoot first and regret it later" was a rare quality worth exploiting. He was regretting accepting the assignment, not because of the negotiations themselves, though those were exhausting enough. No, he was regretting it because of Commander Isara and the increasingly difficult task of pretending he didn't find her absolutely fascinating in ways that had nothing to do with interstellar diplomacy. She was brilliant. That was the problem. Well, one of the problems. During negotiations, she'd identify solutions that neither side had considered, threading diplomatic needles with precision that made Marcus's military mind appreciate the strategic artistry. She had this way of tilting her head when considering a problem, those long ears, elegant and distinctly Aetherin shifting position in what he'd learned, was their equivalent of thoughtful expression. And when she smiled, which wasn't often in formal settings, it transformed her entire face from severe diplomat to someone Marcus desperately wanted to know better. He was being an idiot, a professional idiot, but still an idiot. They were here to negotiate a treaty between their civilizations, not to develop inappropriate attractions to alien delegation members. Marcus had maintained perfect professional distance during every session, kept his expression neutral during every interaction, and absolutely was not thinking about the elegant line of her profile or the silver-white skin that seemed to capture and reflect the starlight or the intelligence in those violet eyes. "Captain Hayes." Marcus jumped, spinning away from the viewport to find Isara standing approximately 3 feet behind him. How long had she been there? His combat training was screaming at him for missing her approach, but his brain was too busy short-circuiting over the fact that she was here, in casual attire rather than formal diplomatic robes, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Commander Isara," he managed, pleased that his voice came out steady. "Couldn't sleep either." "The negotiations have been intensive," she said, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. Close. Close enough that Marcus could see the faint bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin, marks of Aetherin nobility, according to his briefing files. "I find observation of celestial phenomena calming. I hope I am not intruding on your solitude." "Not at all," Marcus said, which was both true and a complete lie. Her presence was many things, but not intrusive wasn't one of them. She seemed to occupy space with an intensity that made him hyper-aware of her proximity. "The nebula is remarkable. We don't see anything like this near Earth's sector." "Yes, the Viridian Nebula is considered one of our Commonwealth's greatest natural wonders." She tilted her head, and Marcus caught himself staring at the movement of her ears. "Though I suspect you were not thinking about stellar cartography before I arrived." Marcus felt heat creep up his neck. Just processing the day's negotiations, trying to figure out the agricultural trade clauses. Isara made a sound that could have meant anything. "Your species has such interesting methods of emotional regulation. The way you suppress visible reactions, control facial expressions, maintain what you call professional distance." "It's part of diplomatic training," Marcus said, wondering where this was going. "Helps prevent misunderstandings when dealing with species who might read human expressions differently." "And yet," Isara said, turning to face him fully, "it is ultimately futile, is it not? when the emotions themselves remained so clearly present. Marcus's brain, which had been trying to maintain polite diplomatic conversation, suddenly registered that something was very wrong with this interaction. Or very right, or possibly both simultaneously. I'm not sure I follow, Commander. Isara smiled. It was the smile that had been occupying entirely too much of Marcus's mental real estate, warm, knowing, with just a hint of something that could be mischief or could be danger or could be both. Her ears tilted forward in what his briefing files had not covered, but his instincts suggested was significant. So, she said, voice dropping into a register that made every nerve in Marcus's body snap to attention. You like my body? Time stopped. The universe paused. Marcus's carefully maintained professional composure shattered into approximately 7,000 pieces and scattered across the observation deck like shrapnel. I would never, he was stammering. Actually stammering like a cadet caught cheating on an exam. Commander, I apologize if I gave any impression of inappropriate. Captain Hayes. Isara's voice carried amusement now, clear and unmistakable. You are aware that Etherin are naturally empathic, yes. Your briefing materials would have covered this. Marcus's brain, which had been busy melting down, suddenly lurched back into analytical mode. Empathic. The files mentioned enhanced social awareness and nonverbal communication skills. A diplomatic phrasing, Isara interrupted. The reality is more specific. We read bioelectric fields and micro-expressions with accuracy that makes human attempts at emotional concealment endearing. She stepped closer, and Marcus found himself frozen between flight instinct and something entirely different. I have been aware of your attraction for approximately 17 days. Since the session where I proposed the modification to the technology sharing protocols, and you spent 3 minutes radiating approval so clearly that I nearly lost focus on my presentation. 17 days, Marcus repeated faintly. You've known for 17 days and you didn't. Why didn't you say something? Because watching you try so very hard to maintain professional composure while simultaneously broadcasting attraction with every elevated heart rate and dilated pupil has been the most entertaining aspect of these negotiations. Her smile widened, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human standard. You are remarkably expressive for someone who believes himself inscrutable, Captain. Marcus felt like he was drowning in the deep end of a pool he hadn't known existed. I should apologize if my conduct has been inappropriate or made you uncomfortable in any way. Uncomfortable. Isara tilted her head, those ears shifting in what was definitely amusement now. Captain Hayes, Marcus, may I call you Marcus? Given the circumstances, formality seems excessive. Yes. Marcus had lost all control of this conversation somewhere around the moment she'd called him out. Marcus, Isara said, testing his name like she was tasting something new. I have not been uncomfortable. Intrigued, yes. Flattered, certainly. Your attraction is accompanied by genuine respect and intellectual appreciation, which is. She paused, searching for words. Rare. Most species who find Etherin physically appealing reduce us to exotic curiosities. You seem to like my mind as much as my appearance. Your mind is extraordinary, Marcus said before his brain could stop his mouth. The way you negotiate is like watching an artist work. You see patterns and solutions that shouldn't exist but somehow do once you point them out. And yes, you're beautiful, but everyone can see that. The brilliance is what makes it. He stopped, realizing he was making this infinitely worse. Makes it? Isara prompted, and now she was close enough that Marcus could see the violet in her eyes wasn't uniform but contained depths of color that shifted with the light. Dangerous, Marcus finished honestly. Makes it dangerous to be around you, because I keep wanting to know more. Keep wanting to understand how your mind works. Keep wanting to hear you laugh because you do it so rarely in negotiations, and when you do it's like. He stopped again, because apparently his mouth had declared independence from his better judgment. Like, Isara's voice was softer now, and Marcus realized with distant horror that she'd moved closer still, near enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her skin. Like finding something precious you didn't know you were looking for, Marcus said quietly, abandoning all pretense of diplomatic distance because what was the point when she could apparently read him like a technical manual? Commander, Isara, I should probably request reassignment. This is clearly compromising my professional objectivity and if I told you, Isara interrupted, that I have been equally compromised. Marcus's brain stuttered. I'm sorry, what? Your briefing materials explain that Etherin are empathic. What they likely did not explain is that emotional connection flows in both directions. I can read your feelings, yes. But prolonged exposure to someone radiating attraction, respect, and genuine care. Her ears flattened slightly against her skull, a gesture his files hadn't covered, but that his instincts interpreted as vulnerability. It creates resonance. I have found myself affected, intrigued, responding to your presence in ways I did not anticipate when these negotiations began. You're saying. Marcus tried to process this revelation and found his usually reliable tactical mind completely useless. You're attracted to me. I am saying, Isara corrected, that over the past 3 weeks I have observed a human officer who combines military discipline with unexpected compassion, who advocates for fair treaty terms even when it weakens his bargaining position, who listens to opposing viewpoints with genuine consideration rather than simply waiting to counter-argue, who looks at me and sees a person rather than an alien curiosity. She met his eyes directly. Yes, Marcus, I find you attractive, intellectually, emotionally, and a smile flickered across her face. Your physical form is not displeasing to Etherin aesthetic sensibilities. Marcus laughed, a short surprised sound. Not displeasing. That's the most diplomatic way anyone's ever told me they think I'm good-looking. We are diplomats, Isara pointed out. Phrasing is our occupation. Her expression grew more serious. Though perhaps we should cease being diplomatic about this. You are attracted to me. I am attracted to you. We are both adults of our respective species. The question becomes, what do we do with this information? That's a very logical approach to what feels like a fairly illogical situation, Marcus said, his heart hammering against his ribs. Emotions are not illogical, Isara said. They simply operate on different calculus than pure reason. Among my people, emotional honesty is valued. Hiding feelings is considered exhausting and pointless when everyone can sense them regardless. Among my people, Marcus countered, privacy is valued. Having someone read my feelings without consent is. He paused, searching for the right word. Invasive, Isara suggested, and now her ears flattened fully definite distress. I apologize. I had not considered that perspective. We grow up with empathic awareness as normal, but you experienced emotion as private until this moment. I have violated that privacy repeatedly. No, Marcus said quickly, surprised by how much her distress bothered him. That's not what I meant, it's just different, unsettling, but not necessarily bad. He took a breath, making a decision that was either brave or stupid. You want emotional honesty. Here it is. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for weeks. You're brilliant and challenging, and when you smile like you did earlier, it makes me want to figure out how to make it happen again. I know this is complicated and probably diplomatically inadvisable, and I have no idea how human-Etherin relationships even work. But the ship lurched hard. Marcus's combat reflexes kicked in, and he reached out instinctively to steady Isara as artificial gravity fluctuated. His hand caught her arm, and suddenly the world exploded into sensation that had nothing to do with the ship's motion. He felt her, not just physical contact, but her emotions flowing through the touch point like a current. Surprise, warmth, attraction that mirrored his own. And underneath it, threading through everything else, loneliness that ached with familiarity because Marcus knew that feeling intimately. years of military service, relationships that couldn't survive deployment schedules, growing isolation from anyone who understood what he'd seen and done. Isara's eyes widened, and Marcus realized she was feeling him too. His attraction, yes, but also the fierce protectiveness that had made him reach for her, the respect that went bone deep, the careful hope that maybe this impossible thing could somehow work. "Oh," Isara said softly, "I did not expect the depth of—" She stopped, seeming as overwhelmed as Marcus felt. The moment shattered as alarms began wailing throughout the ship. Marcus released Isara's arm, immediately missing the connection, and his tactical mind snapped back online. "Spatial anomaly," he said, reading the emergency alert scrolling across his comm device. "All personnel to stations." "That's not good." "No," Isara agreed, her own device showing similar warnings in Etherin script. "We should return to our delegations." They moved toward the exit, then Isara stopped, turning back. "Marcus, after the crisis, we should continue this conversation." "Definitely," Marcus said, "though maybe somewhere less public than an observation deck." "My quarters," Isara said, then smiled at his expression. "For conversation, Captain. Your human mind is remarkably loud in its assumptions." Marcus felt himself grin despite the alarms, and the crisis, and the complete upheaval of everything he'd thought he understood about this diplomatic mission. "You're never going to let me live down the fact that you can read my emotions, are you?" "Never," Isara confirmed, her ears tilting forward in unmistakable affection. "Now come. Let us ensure our delegations survive whatever disaster is occurring. Then we can discuss what exactly we are to each other." They ran toward their respective stations, and Marcus realized that getting called out for his attraction on an observation deck might be the best thing that had happened since this mission began. Complicated, yes. Diplomatically inadvisable, probably. But as he felt Isara's presence beside him, warm and alive and radiating emotions that matched his own, Marcus decided some complications were worth the risk. Isara's quarters were larger than Marcus expected. The Etherin delegation had clearly secured better accommodations than Earth's team, probably through superior advanced negotiation. The space was elegant, decorated with what Marcus assumed was Etherin aesthetic. Flowing lines, bioluminescent panels that cast soft purple light, and furniture that seemed to grow organically from the floor. Through the viewport, the Viridian Nebula painted everything in shifting shades of blue. Isara offered, moving toward a heating unit that looked nothing like Earth technology. "It is customary among my people to offer refreshment when inviting someone to private quarters, a gesture of trust and welcome." "Trust," Marcus repeated, settling onto something that was either a chair or a very sophisticated cushion. "Given that you've been reading my emotions for weeks without me knowing, shouldn't I be the one worried about trust?" Isara paused, her ears flattening slightly. "That genuinely bothers you. I can feel your—" She stopped herself. "I apologize. I keep referencing my ability to read you, which is precisely the issue. Among Etherin, empathic awareness is so normalized we forget it is not universal." "It's not that it bothers me exactly," Marcus said, accepting the cup she offered. The tea smelled like something between mint and ozone. "It's just disorienting. I'm used to my thoughts and feelings being private. The idea that you've known what I've been feeling this whole time, while I was trying so hard to hide it, is embarrassing." "Why?" Isara settled across from him, her violet eyes curious. "Why is experiencing attraction something to hide? You feel what you feel. Emotions are not shameful, Marcus. In human culture, there's a concept of appropriate emotional display," Marcus tried to explain, "especially in professional settings. You're supposed to maintain objectivity, not let personal feelings interfere with duty. Admitting attraction to a colleague, especially one from another species during sensitive diplomatic negotiations, that's a complication we're trained to avoid." "How exhausting," Isara said simply, "to feel something genuine and spend energy suppressing it, to pretend objectivity you do not possess. She sipped her tea, considering. Among Etherin, emotional suppression is considered both futile and slightly tragic. We teach emotional regulation, learning to experience feelings without being controlled by them, but hiding what we feel from others. That is viewed as dishonest. So Etherin just broadcast their emotions all the time? Marcus asked, fascinated despite his discomfort. We cannot help but radiate emotional states to those with empathic sensitivity. So yes, we learn to be honest about what we feel, because everyone will know regardless. Her ears tilted forward. Though I should note, my ability to read you is more pronounced than typical Etherin empathy. It is a trait of my family line, part of why I was selected for diplomatic service. I can read not just general emotional state, but specific nuances. Your attraction, for instance. I do not simply sense that you find me appealing. I sense that you appreciate my intellect as much as my appearance, that your attraction contains respect and genuine curiosity about who I am as an individual. Marcus felt heat rise in his face. That's incredibly invasive. Yes, Isara agreed calmly. It is, and I have been reading you without your informed consent for weeks. For that, I offer genuine apology. I should have informed you of the depth of my empathic ability when we began working together. The honest acknowledgement took some of the wind out of Marcus's indignation. Why didn't you? Because I was curious, Isara admitted. You intrigued me from our first meeting. Your military background combined with unexpected diplomatic skill, the way you approach problems like tactical puzzles. I wanted to understand you without the filter of you trying to manage my perception. She met his eyes directly. That was selfish. I rationalized it as gathering intelligence for negotiations, but truthfully, I simply wanted to know you. Marcus processed this, sipping his tea while his tactical mind worked through implications. So when you said you've been attracted to me, that's real, not just responding to my feelings. Empathic resonance can create sympathetic emotional responses, Isara said carefully. If someone radiates strong emotion toward me, I will feel echoes of that emotion. But what I feel toward you goes beyond simple resonance, Marcus. Your attraction may have drawn my attention initially, but my own feelings developed independently. She set down her cup, and Marcus saw vulnerability in the gesture. You make me laugh during tense negotiations with observations no one else voices. You see diplomatic solutions from angles my training never covered. You show compassion for species weaker than yours in ways that defy pure strategic advantage. And when you look at me, she paused, you look at me as though I am a puzzle you wish to solve not through empathy but through genuine connection. As though you want to earn understanding rather than simply read it from my emotional state. That's because I can't read your emotional state, Marcus pointed out. This is a wildly unbalanced dynamic. You know everything I'm feeling while I'm guessing based on ear position and facial expressions I'm probably interpreting wrong half the time. Would you like to know what I am feeling right now? Isara asked quietly. Yes, Marcus said immediately, then stopped. Wait, is this a trap? Am I about to learn something deeply embarrassing? Isara's expression softened into genuine amusement. I am feeling nervous, which is rare for me. I am feeling anticipation. I am feeling attracted to you, intellectually and physically. I am feeling curious about whether you can accept that I have seen your emotional landscape and still want to know you better. I am feeling, she hesitated, hopeful, that perhaps the connection I sense between us is something real enough to pursue despite the obvious complications. Marcus stared at her, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. You're serious. You actually want to pursue this, whatever this is. I would like to explore the possibility, yes. Isara leaned forward slightly. Though I should warn you, Etherin courtship practices may differ significantly from human customs. We build relationships through emotional sharing, progressive intimacy through empathic connection. What you would call getting to know someone. We accomplish partially through direct emotional contact. Yes, Isara agreed. Which is why Etherin courtship proceeds in stages. Light touch, brief connection, gradually building trust before progressing to deeper contact. We would not, she paused, seeming to search for diplomatic phrasing. We would not rush into full emotional intimacy before you are prepared. And human courtship, Marcus said, typically involves a lot of talking. Getting to know each other through conversation, shared experiences, verbal vulnerability before physical intimacy. We build trust through choosing to reveal ourselves rather than having emotions read. Fascinating, Isara said. So much effort spent on gradual revelation of what simply is. Though I suppose the choice itself carries meaning, deciding to be vulnerable rather than having vulnerability exposed. Exactly, Marcus said, relieved she understood. For humans, privacy isn't about hiding shameful things. It's about having the right to choose what to share and when. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the vast cultural gap they were attempting to bridge. So how do we do this? Marcus finally asked. Navigate a relationship where you can read my every emotion and I'm flying blind. I could reduce contact, Isara offered. Limit my empathic reading to only what you explicitly consent to. It would be difficult, like deliberately choosing not to see someone when they are standing before me, but I could learn if it would make you more comfortable. Marcus considered this, then shook his head. No, that's not fair to you. Your empathy is part of who you are. Asking you to suppress it would be like me asking you to close your eyes around me permanently. He leaned forward, making a decision. What if we try a hybrid approach? You can read my emotions. I can't stop that anyway, but you check in verbally about what you're sensing. Give me the chance to explain or contextualize what you're feeling from me. Let me have some agency in how my emotions are interpreted. Asara's ears tilted forward in clear interest. Combine Etherin empathic awareness with human verbal communication. That could work, though it requires patience from both of us, me to wait for explanation before drawing conclusions, you to accept that I will feel your emotions before you voice them. I can work with that, Marcus said. Then he smiled. Though I have to ask, what exactly have you been feeling from me during negotiations? Because if my poker face has been failing that badly, I need to know what everyone's been seeing. Everyone else sees only what you choose to show, Isara assured him. Your control over microexpressions is excellent by human standards. I see more only because of enhanced sensitivity. She tilted her head, considering. During yesterday's session on technology exchange protocols, you radiated frustration with your own delegation's conservative stance, followed by grudging acceptance and strategic recalculation of how to advance Earth's interests within those constraints. When I proposed the modified framework, you felt surprise, then approval, then what I would characterize as intellectual attraction, the pleasure of encountering a mind that works in compatible ways to your own. That's remarkably specific, Marcus said, and accurate. I was impressed with your solution, though I tried not to show it because I didn't want to seem too eager to accept Etherin proposals. Your external expression remained diplomatically neutral, Isara confirmed. But your emotional state was rather loudly impressed. It was flattering to know I had genuinely impressed you rather than simply offered an acceptable compromise. Marcus laughed. So I've been broadcasting, wow, she's brilliant for weeks while trying to look professionally impartial. That's mortifying. I found it endearing, Isara said, her smile returning. Your people work so hard to hide what is written clearly in your hearts. The ship's intercom chose that moment to crackle to life, announcing that all delegation members should report for briefing on the spatial anomaly. The moment broke, but the connection between them remained. We should go, Marcus said reluctantly. Yes, Isara agreed, standing gracefully. But before they reached the door, she caught his hand, deliberate contact, unmistakable in its intention. Marcus felt the flood of connection again. Her genuine affection, her curiosity about where this could lead, her hope mixed with caution about the complications ahead. "What are you feeling?" she asked, demonstrating their new communication framework. Marcus considered, then answered honestly. "Excited, terrified, hopeful, like I've found something rare and don't want to mess it up." "Good," Isara said, squeezing his hand. "That is exactly how I feel as well." They walked toward the briefing together, hands linked, and Marcus decided that maybe having someone read his emotions wasn't invasion. It was just a different kind of honesty than he was used to, one he could learn to appreciate. The briefing room was packed with both delegations when Marcus and Isara arrived, separately, by unspoken agreement, though Marcus suspected every Etherin in the room probably picked up on the emotional shift between them regardless. The CSS Horizon's captain, Commander Patricia Chen, stood at the head of the table looking grim. "The anomaly is a collapsing micro-wormhole," Chen announced without preamble. "It's pulling us toward it with gravitational force that's increasing exponentially. Engineering estimates we have 6 hours before we reach the event horizon, at which point we either escape or get torn apart by tidal forces." "Can we increase thrust to break free?" Marcus asked, his military training kicking in automatically. "Not enough power," Chen said. "The wormhole is generating a gravitational gradient that effectively cancels our current engine output. We'd need at minimum 112% of rated thrust to escape, and that's beyond our reactor's capabilities." One of the Etherin delegates, Scholar Kethais, their senior scientist, leaned forward. "Has your engineering team considered a slingshot maneuver, using the gravitational pull to build velocity for escape trajectory?" "Calculated it," Chen said. "Margins are too tight. We'd need perfect timing and trajectory accuracy, beyond our navigational computer's capabilities." Marcus saw Isara's ears tilt forward, her problem-solving expression. "What if we combined our computational resources? Etherin navigational algorithms are designed for extreme precision. If we integrated our systems with your propulsion controls, that would require unprecedented technical cooperation between our species," someone from the Earth delegation objected. "We don't have time to debug integration issues." "Then we make time," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of his military rank. "Because the alternative is dying together while maintaining proper technical boundaries." He looked at Chen. "Captain, with respect, this situation calls for exactly the kind of cooperation this diplomatic mission is supposed to demonstrate. Let's prove the treaty works by surviving this." Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Agreed. I'll authorize full system access for integration. Commander Isara, Scholar Kethais, can your team handle the navigational computation?" "Yes," Isara said with absolute confidence. "But we will need human engineering expertise to interface with your propulsion systems. The escape maneuver is useless if we cannot execute it." "Captain Hayes," Chen said, and Marcus felt everyone's attention shift to him. "Your service record shows combat engineering certification. You're our best systems integration specialist." "I can do it," Marcus confirmed, "though I'll need direct access to the forward deflector array. That means someone needs to be in the maintenance junction for manual override, because our automated systems won't respond fast enough to the computational adjustments." "The forward junction is partially depressurized," Chen said. "Structural integrity is questionable. Whoever goes might not make it back." "Then I'll go," Marcus and Isara said simultaneously. They looked at each other, and Marcus saw his own determination reflected in her expression. He also felt, through their new connection, her absolute refusal to let him go alone into danger. "Commander Isara, you're needed for the navigational calculations," Chen started. "Scholar Kethais can handle the calculations," Isara interrupted. "Captain Hayes will need someone to monitor structural integrity and compensate for system fluctuations in real time. My empathic sensitivity allows me to detect stress patterns in materials and crew that sensors miss. We work better together. Marcus wanted to argue that she shouldn't risk herself, but he understood the logic. And truthfully, the idea of facing this without her felt wrong in ways that went beyond tactical assessment. Fine, Chen said. You have 4 hours to integrate systems and plot the escape trajectory. Make it work. What followed was the most intense technical collaboration of Marcus's career. He worked beside Asara in engineering spaces too cramped for comfort, running integration protocols, while she interfaced with Etherin systems that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. They fell into rhythm without discussion. Marcus would identify a technical requirement, and Asara would have the solution already forming, her empathic sense apparently letting her anticipate his needs before he voiced them. "This is what it's like," Marcus said at one point, taking a brief break while systems compiled. "Working with you when you're reading my intentions." "Is it uncomfortable?" Asara asked, not looking up from her calculations. "No," Marcus said, surprised by how true it was. "It's efficient, like having a partner who knows what you need before you ask. I can see why Etherin value empathic connection. It creates collaboration that would take humans years to develop." "Years we do not have," Asara pointed out, but she smiled. "Though I am pleased you are beginning to see advantages to what you previously termed invasion of privacy." "I'm starting to think privacy is overrated," Marcus admitted. "Or at least, that there are different kinds of intimacy, and knowing someone's emotions might be one of them." Asara's attention snapped to him, her ears shifting in surprise. "That is a significant philosophical shift for a human, I think." "Maybe I'm being influenced by a very persuasive Etherin," Marcus said, then his console beeped warning. "Integration complete. We're ready for the escape attempt." The journey to the forward deflector junction was tense. They suited up in EVA gear, tethered together, and made their way through sections of the ship where hull plating groaned under gravitational stress. Marcus kept glancing at Asara, watching her monitor structural integrity with senses he couldn't match. "Talk to me," he said as they navigated a particularly damaged corridor. "What are you sensing?" "The hull is under extreme stress," Asara reported. "I can feel the molecular bonds straining, the metal's desire to tear apart. But we have time, perhaps 12 minutes before catastrophic failure in this section." "12 minutes," Marcus repeated. "Good to know. How are you doing, emotionally, I mean?" "Afraid," Asara said simply. "Determined. Grateful that if we die, at least I will die beside someone She stopped. "Someone you what?" Marcus prompted, his heart rate spiking. "Someone I care for," Asara finished quietly. "More than I anticipated when these negotiations began." "Same," Marcus said. "For what it's worth, if we survive this, I'd like to explore that caring further, see where it leads." "That is acceptable," Asara said, and Marcus could hear the smile in her voice even through the helmet comms. "Assuming we survive." They reached the junction, and Marcus began the recalibration sequence while Asara monitored for fluctuations. The work was delicate. One wrong input could destabilize the entire deflector array and doom the ship immediately rather than in 6 hours. Marcus's hands moved with steady precision, years of combat engineering experience guiding each adjustment. Then his hand slipped. Minor error, barely noticeable, but enough to trigger a cascade reaction in the subsystems. Red lights exploded across his interface, and Marcus felt ice flood his veins as he realized he'd just potentially killed everyone aboard. "Marcus, stop," Asara said, her voice calm. "Let me." Her hands covered his on the controls, and suddenly Marcus wasn't working alone. He felt her presence in his mind, not intrusive but supportive, her empathic sense guiding his movements with precision he couldn't manage by himself. She didn't take over, instead she moved with him, their hands operating as one unit, correcting the cascade before it could propagate. The red lights winked out. The system stabilized. Marcus found himself breathing hard, his forehead pressed against the cool metal of the control panel. "That was close," he managed. "Yes," Isara agreed, her hand still on his. But we succeeded, together. Marcus looked at her through their helmet faceplates, saw her violet eyes serious and warm. I've never worked with anyone the way I work with you. It's like our minds are designed to complement each other. Empathic resonance can create such synchronization, Isara said, though what we have feels deeper than typical resonance, feels. She searched for words, inevitable, as though we were meant to find each other across the stars. That's remarkably romantic for someone who claims emotional honesty is just practical, Marcus teased. Perhaps I am discovering that romance and practicality are not mutually exclusive, Isara said. Then her expression shifted. The calculations are complete. We need to return to the command center. The escape attempt begins in 8 minutes. They made their way back through damaged corridors, moving carefully but quickly. Marcus found himself hyper-aware of Isara beside him. The way she moved, the warmth of her presence through the tether connecting them, the knowledge that she'd quite literally been in his mind moments ago and hadn't flinched from what she found there. The escape maneuver was violent and precise. The Horizon dove toward the wormhole at calculated angles, building velocity while Etherin navigational algorithms made minute course corrections that kept them clear of tidal forces that would have torn the ship apart. At the critical moment, Chen fired the engines at 112% thrust, a dangerous overload that sent shudders through the entire vessel, and the combined human engineering and Etherin computation hurled them free of the gravitational well. When the alarms finally stopped and Chen confirmed they were clear, the command center erupted in cheers from both delegations. Marcus found Isara across the room, and their eyes met with shared relief and triumph. "We did it," someone said, and Marcus wasn't sure which delegation they were from. It didn't matter. Later, after damage reports and system checks and the 100 small tasks that followed any crisis, Marcus found Isara in the observation deck where this had all started. She stood at the viewport, watching stars that no longer threatened to consume them. "I was terrified," she said without preamble, "when you nearly caused the cascade failure. I felt your fear and it resonated with my own until I could barely think clearly. That is the danger of empathic connection, Marcus. Your emotions become mine. Your pain becomes mine. If you had died—" "I didn't," Marcus interrupted, moving beside her. "Because you were there, because you steadied me when I couldn't steady myself." "What we did," Isara said quietly, "connecting so deeply during the repair. That level of empathic intimacy is usually reserved for bonded pairs among my people, for those committed to sharing emotions permanently." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I am saying," Isara turned to face him, "that I have felt your heart, Marcus Hayes. I have moved in your mind and felt you move in mine. Among Etherin, such connection is not casual. It is," she paused, "it is the beginning of something permanent, if you wish it." Marcus stared at her, understanding the weight of what she was offering. A relationship where emotions couldn't hide, where vulnerability was constant and privacy was negotiated rather than assumed, where two vastly different species tried to build something neither fully understood. "I wish it," Marcus said. "I don't know how this works across our species. I don't know if it can survive beyond this diplomatic mission. But I want to try, Isara. I want to know where this leads. Even knowing I will feel everything you feel. That there will be no hiding, no emotional walls between us. Especially knowing that," Marcus said, "because maybe I'm tired of hiding. Maybe having someone know me, really know me, emotions and all, is exactly what I've needed without realizing it." Isara smiled, her ears tilting forward in unmistakable joy. "Then we try, Marcus. We build something new between our peoples, starting with us." She reached for his hand, and Marcus took it willingly, feeling the rush of connection that was becoming familiar and precious. Joy and hope and determination flowing between them, two people from impossible worlds learning to bridge the distance. "Fair warning," Marcus said. "If you're going to feel all my emotions, You're going to experience a lot of terrible human humor and probably some embarrassing levels of affection. I will endure it, Isara said solemnly, then ruined the effect by laughing. Though perhaps you could warn me before the terrible humor so I can prepare myself emotionally. Where's the fun in that? Marcus asked and pulled her closer, marveling that this terrifying, brilliant woman wanted to try building something with him. Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled on, indifferent to the small miracle happening aboard one diplomatic vessel. But for Marcus and Isara, it felt like the universe had just gotten infinitely larger and more full of possibility. The treaty negotiations concluded 2 days after the crisis, with terms that satisfied both delegations more than anyone had expected. Working together to survive had created goodwill that months of diplomatic maneuvering couldn't have achieved. The final document included cultural exchange programs, joint scientific initiatives, and a commitment to continued cooperation that both Earth and the Etherin Commonwealth celebrated. But for Marcus, the treaty was secondary to the much more personal negotiation happening alongside it. He stood in the corridor outside Isara's quarters, straightening his uniform and wondering if he should have brought something. Flowers were a human courtship gesture, but did Etherin appreciate Earth vegetation? His comm device had 17 research articles on Etherin customs pulled up, and he'd managed to confuse himself more than educate himself. The door opened before he could knock, and Isara stood there with amusement clear in her expression. You have been standing outside, radiating anxiety for 3 minutes. Come inside before you give yourself a stress headache. That obvious? Marcus asked, stepping into her quarters. To me, yes, to others, probably not. She gestured to the seating area. Though I should mention, my delegation has noticed the shift in emotional resonance between us. Etherin are difficult to surprise about relationship developments when everyone can feel the attraction. Marcus sat, then stood, then sat again. I should probably apologize for making a spectacle. Marcus, Isara caught his hand, sending calm through their connection. Stop apologizing for feeling things. Among my people, this would be celebrated. 2 individuals finding connection strong enough to pursue bonding. That is joy, not scandal. Right, Marcus said, taking a breath. Different cultures, I need to remember that. As do I, Isara said. Your commanding officer requested a meeting with me this morning. She wished to ensure I understood that human military regulations regarding relationships are complex, and that she expected both of us to maintain professional conduct during the remainder of this mission. Marcus winced. Commander Chen lectured you about fraternization regs. She was quite thorough, Isara confirmed. Though her actual concern seemed to be less about regulations and more about ensuring you were not being, I believe her phrase was taken advantage of by an alien who can read your emotions. She said that. Marcus felt heat rise in his face. I'm going to have a very awkward conversation with my co. Do not be too harsh with her, Isara said. Her protective instinct toward her crew is admirable. And her concern has merit. The power imbalance between us is significant. I can read your emotions while you cannot read mine. I know when you are attracted, uncertain, hopeful, afraid. You must navigate by guessing, based on incomplete information. So how do we fix that? Marcus asked. We communicate, Isara said simply. I tell you what I feel verbally so you have the same information I do through empathy. She tilted her head, considering. Currently, I am feeling hopeful about our connection but uncertain about logistics. Nervous that perhaps you are more infatuated with the idea of me than who I actually am. Cautiously optimistic that we can build something real despite our many differences. Marcus absorbed this, appreciating the honesty. I'm feeling excited and terrified in equal measure. Worried I'm going to mess this up by not understanding Etherin customs well enough. Hoping this isn't just a diplomatic mission romance that falls apart when we return to our real lives. And he met her eyes. Absolutely certain that what I feel for you is about who you are, not what you represent. Good, Isara said. That is what I needed to hear. She moved closer. Among Etherin, when two individuals decide to explore bonding, they engage in progressively intimate emotional sharing. Light touch, brief connections, building trust before deeper merging. Would you like to try? Try what exactly? Marcus asked, his heart rate spiking. Controlled empathic contact. I will share my emotions with you through touch, deliberately, so you can feel what I feel. It will not give you empathic ability, that is biological, not learned, but it will let you experience my emotional state directly. Create balance between us. Marcus considered this, then nodded. Okay, what do I need to do? Simply relax and accept what you feel. Do not try to analyze or interpret, just experience. Isara took both his hands, her grip firm and warm. Ready. Ready, Marcus said. Then suddenly he was feeling things that weren't his emotions. Warmth flooded through him, affection, genuine and strong. Curiosity about who he was beneath his careful control. Attraction that was both intellectual and physical. Hope that this impossible connection could somehow work. And underneath it all, a thread of fear, that perhaps she was risking too much, moving too fast, letting herself care for someone from a species she'd known only weeks. I feel the same way, Marcus said, his voice rough. All of that, the hope and fear and caring. I know, Isara said. I can feel your emotions resonating with mine. That is what makes this real, Marcus. Not just physical attraction or intellectual compatibility, but genuine emotional resonance. What we feel reflects and amplifies between us. She released his hands, and Marcus felt the loss of connection like a physical ache. That was intense. Yes, Isara agreed. And that was merely surface-level sharing. Full empathic bonding between Etherin involves much deeper connection, essentially merging emotional states until you cannot distinguish your feelings from your partner's. It is, she searched for words, the most intimate act my people know, more profound than physical joining because emotions cannot lie. And you can do that with me, Marcus asked. Even though I'm human and don't have empathic ability. The connection flows one direction more easily than the other, Isara explained. I would feel you completely, but you would receive only what I consciously project. Still, it would create a bond between us that is recognized as permanent among my people. One does not casually merge emotions with another, Marcus. Once done, you are considered bonded, partners in all ways that matter. Marcus processed this, understanding the weight of what she was describing. That's a very serious commitment. Yes, Isara said. Which is why I mention it now, so you understand where Etherin courtship leads. We do not date casually or explore relationships lightly. Emotional intimacy progresses toward bonding or it ends. There is no middle ground for us. So I need to decide, Marcus said slowly, whether I'm prepared for that level of commitment, knowing that if we continue this, it's heading toward permanent bonding. Yes, Isara said, and he felt her anxiety through their link despite her attempt at calm. I will not pressure you, Marcus. If this is too much, too fast, too alien for your comfort, tell me now, and we will step back before either of us is hurt more deeply. Marcus looked at her, this remarkable woman who'd called him out for his attraction, who'd worked beside him to save their ship, who was offering him a connection deeper than anything human relationships typically achieved. He thought about his life back on Earth, his career, his family, the familiar patterns of human courtship that made sense because he'd grown up understanding them. Then he thought about how it felt to work with Isara, their minds moving in synchronization. How it felt when she shared her emotions, and he understood her more completely in one moment than he'd understood anyone through years of traditional relationship building. How it felt to be truly known, emotions and all, and accepted rather than judged. I'm not ready for full bonding, Marcus said honestly. That's too much too fast for a human who's still learning to accept that someone can read his emotions. But I want to keep exploring this, Isara. I want to see where it leads with the understanding that yes, if this works, I'm prepared for permanent commitment. even if that commitment looks different from anything I've known before. Relief flooded through their connection, and Isara's ears tilted forward in unmistakable joy. That is acceptable. We proceed slowly, building trust and comfort. No pressure, no rushing toward bonding before you are ready. Though I should warn you, Marcus said, my next assignment starts in 3 weeks. I'll be returning to Earth for debriefing and reassignment. If we're going to continue this, we need to figure out logistics. Isara's expression grew serious. Yes, the practical complications I have been avoiding thinking about. You have duties to Earth. I have duties to the Etherin Commonwealth. Our peoples are allies now, but we live worlds apart. So we make it work, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. Long-distance relationships are a human tradition. We've got communications technology. We can schedule visits. Or, Isara interrupted, we could request assignment to the new Earth-Etherin Cultural Exchange Program being established under the treaty. Marcus blinked. There's a cultural exchange program. Article 17, subsection 4, Isara said. Both our peoples agreed to establish permanent liaison offices and exchange programs to facilitate ongoing cooperation. It will require staff from both species, preferably those with diplomatic experience and proven ability to work across cultural boundaries. Her ears tilted forward in what was definitely mischief now. Such as a human captain with combat engineering skills and diplomatic certification, and an Etherin commander with negotiation, expertise, and enhanced empathic sensitivity. You're saying we could work together, Marcus said, hope rising in his chest. Officially, as our actual assignments. I am saying that I intend to volunteer for the exchange program, Isara said. And that if you were to volunteer as well, we would likely be selected given our successful collaboration during this mission. We would be stationed together, working together, building the kind of cooperation between our species that we have already demonstrated we can achieve. Marcus felt a grin spreading across his face. That's brilliant. Also completely transparent as a reason to stay together, but brilliant. Among Etherin, combining professional duty with personal connection is considered ideal, Isara said. Why separate what works well together? You and I are effective partners in crisis. We complement each other's skills, and we happen to be developing a personal bond that makes our professional collaboration stronger. This serves both our peoples and our relationship. I love how you've rationalized this, Marcus said. Though I should mention, requesting assignment to a program specifically to stay near someone I'm romantically involved with is definitely going to raise eyebrows in Earth military circles. Let them raise eyebrows, Isara said. What matters is whether you want this, whether you are willing to restructure your career around the possibility of us. Marcus considered, weighing his options with the tactical analysis that had served him through years of military service. The smart choice was probably to return to Earth, maintain his career trajectory, avoid complications with an alien relationship that might not survive long-term. The safe choice was to step back before he got in too deep. But Marcus was discovering that when it came to Isara, he wasn't interested in smart or safe. He was interested in real. I'll submit my application tomorrow, he said. Request assignment to the Cultural Exchange Program, citing my diplomatic experience and successful collaboration with Etherin personnel during this mission. Not hiding that we're involved, not pretending this is purely professional, but making clear that what we've built works on both personal and political levels. Isara's smile was radiant. Then we have a plan. We complete this mission, submit our applications, and hope our respective commands see the wisdom in keeping successful partnerships intact. And if they don't approve it? Marcus asked. Then we find another way, Isara said simply. I am not letting go of you easily, Marcus Hayes. You have become too important. Same, Marcus said, then pulled her close, marveling that she let him despite the height difference making it slightly awkward. Though I have to ask, is this normal? developing this kind of connection so quickly? No, Isara admitted against his shoulder. Etherian bonding typically develops over years of careful emotional sharing. What we have, this intensity, this sense of recognition and rightness, that is rare, special, worth fighting for. They stood together in comfortable silence, and Marcus felt their emotions settling into harmony, her hope matching his, her determination reinforcing his, her affection warming something in his chest that had been cold for longer than he'd realized. The days until the mission's end passed in a blur of final negotiations, damage repairs, and stolen moments together. Marcus and Isara were careful to maintain professional conduct during official functions, no hand-holding in front of delegations, no obvious displays of affection during treaty signings. But in private moments, they practiced controlled empathic sharing, learning each other's emotional landscapes like cartographers mapping new territory. Marcus discovered that Isara's confidence hid deep uncertainty about whether she was enough, smart enough, strong enough, worthy of the responsibility she carried. He shared his own buried fears, that his military skills had prepared him only for violence, that he didn't know how to connect with people outside command structures, that he'd spent so long being a soldier he'd forgotten how to be anything else. They learned each other's joy. Isara's delight in elegant solutions to impossible problems, Marcus's satisfaction in fixing broken things and making them work again. They learned each other's humor, hers dry and precise, his self-deprecating and slightly dark. They learned each other's grief, hers for family lost to political violence, his for friends who hadn't come home from combat deployments. By the time the mission concluded and delegations prepared to depart, Marcus felt like he knew Isara more deeply than people he'd known for years. Not despite the empathic connection, but because of it. The ability to feel her emotions gave context to her words, depth to her actions, authenticity to her affection that purely verbal communication could never match. The farewell ceremony was formal, speeches about successful cooperation, promises of continued alliance, ceremonial exchange of gifts between delegations. Marcus stood with the Earth team, Isara with the Etherian, and they maintained careful professional distance, until Marcus made his impulsive decision. "Captain Hayes," Commander Chen said during the reception following the ceremony. "You have something to add." Marcus took a breath, then stepped forward. "Commander, with respect, I'd like to request immediate transfer to the Earth Etherian Cultural Exchange Program." Chen's eyebrows rose. "That's a significant career change, Captain. The exchange program requires giving up your military rank and accepting civilian diplomatic status. You'd lose command authority, take a pay reduction, and have no guarantee of future military reinstatement. You've thought this through?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said. "I believe the exchange program needs personnel who have proven ability to work across cultural boundaries. My experience during this mission demonstrates I can collaborate effectively with Etherian partners." And he met Chen's eyes steadily. "I've found working with Commander Isara to be the most professionally satisfying collaboration of my career. I'd like to continue that partnership." "Professionally satisfying," Chen repeated, her tone suggesting she saw right through the careful phrasing. "Captain, you're aware that transferring to an assignment specifically to maintain proximity to someone you're romantically involved with raises questions about your judgment." "I'm aware, Commander," Marcus said. "I'm also aware that the best partnerships combine personal respect with professional compatibility. What Commander Isara and I have built works on both levels. We're effective together in ways neither of us is alone. That serves both our peoples, regardless of our personal relationship." Chen studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "You're going to do this whether I approve or not, aren't you?" "I'd prefer your approval, ma'am," Marcus said. "But yes, I'm going to do this." "Then I'll support your application," Chen said. "Though I'm noting in your file that you've been compromised by alien attraction and have lost all tactical common sense." Marcus grinned. "That's fair, Commander." From across the reception hall, he felt Isara's attention snap to him. She'd been in conversation with her delegation leader, but had clearly noticed something shift. She excused herself and crossed to him with that elegant stride that still made his heart rate spike. "Marcus," she asked quietly, "what did you just do?" "I requested transfer to the exchange program," Marcus said. "Officially. Publicly, in front of my commanding officer and both delegations. So now everyone knows I'm restructuring my career to stay near you." Isara's eyes widened, her ears flicking in surprise. "You just in front of everyone you announced," she stopped, then smiled with pure joy. "You are either remarkably brave or remarkably foolish." "Both," Marcus confirmed. "Definitely both. Your turn, Commander. Unless you've changed your mind about wanting to do this together." "I submitted my application 3 days ago," Isara said. "I simply had the sense to do it quietly rather than making a public declaration." But her emotions radiated happiness so clearly that every Etherin in the room probably felt it. "We're really doing this," Marcus said. "Building something together, seeing where this leads." "Yes," Isara said, "we are." The exchange program approved both their applications within a week. 6 weeks later, Marcus and Isara stood together in the conference room of the newly established Earth-Etherin Cultural Center, a space station positioned at the midpoint between their two systems, designed to facilitate ongoing cooperation and cultural exchange. They'd been assigned as co-directors of the Diplomatic Liaison Office, charged with managing personnel from both species and addressing issues that arose from their people's learning to work together. It was challenging, occasionally frustrating, and absolutely the right decision. "Another day of explaining human privacy concepts to Etherin who think emotional transparency is obvious," Marcus said, reviewing the day's incident reports. "And explaining to humans that Etherin empathy isn't mind reading, and they need to stop being paranoid about it." "Cultural education takes time," Isara said, moving beside him to review the same reports. "We are teaching our peoples to bridge differences that span evolutionary history. This will not be accomplished in weeks or months." "Years, probably," Marcus agreed. "Good thing we're in this for the long haul." He reached for her hand, and she took it without hesitation. The empathic connection flowed between them, easier now, more natural after weeks of practice. Marcus had learned to sense her emotions through touch with increasing accuracy, while Isara had learned to project her feelings more deliberately, creating balance between them. "I love you," Marcus said quietly. "I know I've said it before, but I wanted to say it again. Because 3 months ago, I didn't think love could look like this. Someone who knows every emotion I feel and still chooses me. Someone who makes vulnerability feel safe instead of terrifying. Someone who—" Isara kissed him, cutting off his words with practical efficiency. When she pulled back, her ears were tilted forward in unmistakable affection. "I love you too," she said, "in all ways that matter, across all differences that separate our peoples, despite every logical reason this should not work." She smiled, perhaps because of those reasons. "We are proof that connection transcends species, Marcus. That love is not limited by biology or culture or the vast distances between stars." "That's very poetic," Marcus teased. "You practicing for a diplomatic speech?" "Perhaps," Isara admitted. "Or perhaps I am simply happy, and happiness makes even practical Etherin diplomats wax poetic." They stood together, looking out at the stars visible through the station's viewports, stars that belonged to both their peoples now, connected by treaty and cooperation, and the small miracle of 2 individuals finding each other across impossible distance. "So," Marcus said eventually, "about that full empathic bonding you mentioned, the permanent kind." Isara went very still. "Yes. I think I'm ready," Marcus said. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. I want that connection with you. Want to experience what it means to be truly bonded in Etherin fashion, if you're still willing." "Always," Isara said, her voice thick with emotion. "Always willing, Marcus. Whenever you are ready, I will bond with you. Make our connection permanent by all the customs of my people. Good, Marcus said, pulling her close. Because you were right about everything. About honesty being better than privacy. About vulnerability being strength instead of weakness. About love being something you build together, rather than fall into accidentally. You learned well, Isara said against his shoulder. For a human who started this journey convinced his emotions should remain private. I had a very persuasive teacher, Marcus said. One who looked at me on an observation deck and asked if I liked her body. Isara laughed, the free, genuine laugh he'd learned to treasure. I regret nothing about that observation deck conversation, though perhaps I could have been more subtle in my approach. Where's the fun in subtle? Marcus asked. You called me out, I got flustered, and here we are, running a cultural exchange program and planning permanent bonding. I'd say your direct approach worked perfectly. Perhaps I should recommend it in my diplomatic methodology publications, Isara mused. Chapter 7. When all else fails, directly ask if they find you attractive. That would be the most read chapter in diplomatic history, Marcus said. Though I'm not sure Earth's foreign service would appreciate their representatives being that honest. Then they have much to learn from Etherin customs, Isara said primly, then ruined the effect by kissing him again. Outside the viewport, the universe continued its eternal dance, stars being born and dying, galaxies wheeling through the cosmic dark, the infinite complexity of existence playing out across impossible scales. But in one small station between two worlds, a human and an Etherin had found something that mattered more than all that vastness. Connection, understanding, and love that proved some distances were meant to be bridged. What started with an embarrassing observation deck conversation had become something that might actually change how two species understood each other. Not through treaties or technology exchange or diplomatic protocols, but through the simple, revolutionary act of two people choosing each other across every difference that should have kept them apart. Marcus and Isara continued their work, building bridges between their peoples one interaction at a time. And in their private moments, they built something even more precious. A relationship that honored both their natures, blended